Okay, we're ready to go.
Yes.
Okay, do we have Supervisor Humphrey present
Yes.
and Supervisor Klein?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. And I'm, of course, on the phone. I'd like to call this special meeting Friday, August 9th, 2024 together. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to go right to our agenda item 2A, information discussion action to canvass the election results contained in the official canvass of the primary election held on July 30th, 2024 in Gila County, Arizona, and declare the results official. So we'll turn it over to Eric Mariscal.
Steve, this is Supervisor Klein. We need to back up and do the pledge on this.
You want to do that?
That's
Okay.
what they're telling me.
Okay. Supervisor Klein, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
You got it, Steve. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Supervisor. So let's proceed with item 2A as read. Eric Mariscal.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Christensen, Supervisor Klein, Supervisor Humphrey. We're here today to go ahead and review the canvass election results of the primary election held July 30th, 2024 in Gila County, Arizona. And so you have before you your canvass report. The primary report is always rather large because it has multiple parties, as you know, and so that makes this one a little bit larger and a little bit more number oriented towards the precinct data. But just as always, we have our precinct locations here within the first few pages here. These are all the locations that we used. We were challenged in this last election by the watch fire that occurred on the San Carlos Reservation. And so we had to last minute make an emergency substitution for one of our locations. But we were able to have that taken care of, no issues, no problems. We were able to notify the public and we were able to get in there to have this location. I just learned this morning, actually yesterday also, afternoon, this morning, we have lost one of our locations, Carrizo Assembly of God Church that we utilize for the elections. Unfortunately, it burnt down over the weekend. I don't know if you were aware of that. So it is burnt, and so we will be scrambling to try to find an alternate location in the Carrizo area, which is very difficult because that was the only one facility that is in that area. So for the next election, I don't know, we might have to erect a tent or do something, but we lost that one facility, and that is the only game in town up there. So we're going to have to start off right off the bat and see what we can come up with an alternative site, just for your information. We have our voter turnout report, which we also always have in every report that we run here. And this time around, we had a 43.33% overall turnout. And of course, our largest polling early ballots were the bulk of this particular election, 11,814, as opposed to the 2,485 people that went to the polls on election day. And comparing to 2022, the last go-round, pretty similar. We had about 12,000 by mail, and about 2,806 went to the polls last time. So we've actually kind of shrunk our polling locations, and our vote by mail continued to be stable. All right. The big one here is our total ballot summary report. This is just the overall numbers here. The total number of registered voters, 33,109. And of course, the total ballots cast there was 14,346. And the number of earlies that we had, 11,814. And of course, the polling place, 2045. And our provisional voting ballots. All right. And of course, it's just a breakdown of the races, how they panned out. The first part is the nonpartisan elections. These are just the cities and towns and their particular numbers and results. Farther down the road, breaking it down by party, we have how the individuals cast their ballots for those particular races, and of course the victors on either side of the party balloting and voting. All right, So the next thing that may be of interest to you, we'll go to that tab where it's the polling place ballots. And these are just the breakdowns, once again, numbers and so forth. And we'll go to the early ballots, which is what a lot of people are curious about. Our summary on that one. Like I said, we had a total of 11,841 ballots that we received for the mail. We rejected 27, and we verified for tabulation 11,814. So we have a breakdown of some of the reasons why these early ballots were rejected, primarily for no signature or the signature did not match. That was the main one. And of course, we allowed those are, they go all the way up until Sunday after the election for curing processes. And so those are the breakdowns that we had on that. And of course, as always, provisionals, we didn't have too many this go around. Total number received were 77. We rejected 30 and we verified 47 for tabulation. Many of those provisionals were not registered, the wrong party, in a couple of cases, registered after the cutoff date. And we had quite a few people, due to the fire that was occurring on 188, the closure of that, some of these that we had a little bit of uptick in and they not registered or in the wrong county were from residents of Maricopa County who couldn't make it back down to the valley, so they came into our locations wanting to vote. Normally, we tell them that their ballot won't count and won't, be counted in Gila County because they're not registered in Gila County. Some of them understood it and they did the detour. They went down and detoured around through Roosevelt and down to the valley. Some of them didn't and didn't have the time or whatnot, so they went ahead and voted provisional. And of course, we made them aware of it, but that's one of the things that by law they are allowed to vote a provisional ballot at the location. And later on, we just, the recorders sift it and they let the chips fall where they may. In this case, like I said, we notified them, but some didn't want to take the ride and some thought they could just go ahead and vote here. So that's one of the reasons that we have there. And the last little section that we have here was the official write-in candidate summary for the county. There were a couple of write-ins for the U.S. Senate on the Green and the Republican side, but we only had 2 show up for the U.S. Senate race. And of course, the big one that a lot of people watched that had a lot of interest in were the write-in candidates for the Gila County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Golombiewski received 114, and for the sheriff's race that had the write-in, Mr. Kurzankowski garnered 1,197 write-ins ballot. Okay. And so that's the general gist of the election. We had a fairly good election, with the exception of as the same issues that we always have: last-minute call-offs by poll workers unable to make it due to sickness or some other emergency that may have occurred. Let's see. But other than that, apart from just the regular run-of-the-mill provisional votes that we had people coming in, not checking their registration, updating their registration, so those kinds of things that we obviously always have, and we always will as long as we have people voting. They're going to not take steps to make sure that everything is correct, and so that's where we kind of get hung up trying to figure that stuff out of the polls on election day. But other than that, we had one incident, and I referred to you about that earlier, with a firearm, unfortunately, and that was something that we hadn't seen in quite some time, but it occurred in one of the locations, and it was no big deal at the time. It was the poll workers handled it very well, and so with that one particular issue, though, I did refer it to the Gila County Attorney's Office, and they'll take it and do whatever they need to do with it. And so I'll follow up on that to see whatever they determine in that. But apart from that one instance, it went fairly well. Of course, we have always the same issues from time to time. We got a couple of reports about voter intimidation occurring in some of the locations, reviewing it and checking it and watching it and just, saying things. It's a very gray, fine line that borders on First Amendment issues and, erring on the side of caution to make sure everybody's safe and secure. We did as good as we could. My marshals at a lot of locations did an excellent job in keeping the peace and making sure that people weren't being, overly pestered and so forth. But, other than that, the standard issues, but nothing major. None of our equipment failed. Our equipment was, the only thing I had to do was change a toner at one of the locations, and that's because they vote heavily at that location. Almost came in close to almost 1,000 voters at that one point at that location. But other than that, our equipment was, good. We had no issues with that connectivity, and so it was overall a generally good election, except for we prefer large margins between the between the candidates, but unfortunately in this one we didn't. And our turnout this one was a little bit lower than in the past primaries, but we still wind up finishing second overall in the state. As always, Yavapai eclipsed us by 3 or 4 percentage points, taking the number 1 spot. But once again, we finished in the top 2 of the state overall voter turnout. It shows that Gila County votes. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Is that your report then, Eric?
Yes, sir, it is.
Oh, okay. I'm having a hard time kind of following, but anyway, Supervisor Humphrey, any questions?
I do not. If I did, I would have already asked them of Eric, so I appreciate the opportunity, but no, I have no questions. So,
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Klein?
thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Eric, I'm gonna go back to the council there in Payson. You've got, what you got? You got Hawes and Underwood that tied, basically.
Right.
And then you've also got Craig. No, maybe that was the only 2 that tied, right?
Yes, those 2 tied.
So, when there's a tie like that, does it go into a recount first? And if they're still tied, then what happens? Does it go to a runoff or?
On this one, this is the area of the city and town. So this is all the call of the Tracy Bailey, the town clerk, and their attorney. So they determine all that, and we just simply, as their vendor, will go ahead and if they need a runoff in November, we'll accomplish that. But I don't know if it'll be between the lowest and the next, or how they calculate that. I'm not 100% certain.
Interesting.
I should have listened to their canvas the other day, but we were a little busy trying to get stuff wrapped up so that we could do this.
Oh, so this town of Payson is canvassed there?
Yes, they have. Yeah. And Monday, all things being equal, I know that they did already file in the Superior Court, so we'll probably be getting the order from the court sometime today, maybe, and that will go ahead and allow us to start the recount once we have that court order. We have everything set. We have our LNA set for Monday at 9 o'clock in the elections office, where we'll be doing a logic and accuracy testing of the machines that the machine that we will use to do the recount. And then once that logic and accuracy test is out of the way, we will go ahead and start the recount of that particular race. And that's all we'll be counting is that Payson race.
Okay, thank you.
And we anticipate it to take the day. We don't really want it to go any longer than that. We'll probably we'll stay until we get it done, because we should be able to get that wrapped up within a day, 8 hours.
Sure. So basically, we're on track with what we've had in the years past
Yeah.
as far as normal running.
Yeah, there's no real great deviations, by a few hundred here and there, but it's, we were actually thinking that we were going to get swamped a lot more than we did, and so we kind of filled our polling locations heavy in anticipation of that, but it didn't materialize. But we were ready for it if it did. And the same thing with the general. We'll go heavy in case we do get swamped or get hit hard, and so we'll be ready for that. And we've taken some steps that we required some additional tablets from a sister county that utilized the same system that we did. That unfortunately for us, they went to a newer model. And so we were able to get some of their hand-me-downs, and so we'll be well positioned in the next general election to have enough tablets to increase our capability to check in voters in November if it gets as heavy as we anticipate it to be.
Okay. Thank you,
Okay, thank you, Eric. I don't have any questions, so I will make a call to the public in Globe, the internet, or Payson. If there is someone, let me know.
No one in Payson.
Okay. Okay, then I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to canvass the election results contained in the official canvass of the primary election held on July 30th, 2024 in Gila County, Arizona, and declare the results official.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate all that you've done.
Thank you, Supervisor Christensen. I just, well, a real brief second here. There are a lot of departments that stepped up at the last here to help us out over in elections. We got a little bit of a crunch on personnel, and so we were struggling there for a bit. But thankfully, Administrative Services, Paul and Carol, they went ahead, and Paul was gracious enough to allow Carol to come back and assist us for a few days. And of course, facilities, we caught a couple of sidelines there where our deliveries got changed at the last minute, and facilities was very was helpful in responding to those last minute changes and not biting my head off, which I appreciate greatly. And of course, the recorder's office did a magnificent job as always. And we got kind of caught behind in the last year, and Charlotte and Sadie sent a couple of their staff over to help us process at the last minute so that we could complete on time. And this election, we finished a day early. We usually don't finish until Friday, but this time we finished on Thursday. We were all done, all was said and over. And IT was gracious enough to provide me with my troubleshooters in the Payson area, without whom I would be hard pressed to cover all the bases. So Lisa and Jeff and all those that helped out, I really appreciate it. And finance for putting up with my bombardment with them for the last few days of the poll workers and troubleshooters and everybody that helps us out there process and administer this election. So they've all been very gracious of the support. I'm very humbled that I don't usually like to ask for help. I like to make sure we get everything done in-house and we get it done. But we were a little bit behind the power curve, and so I thank all those departments that helped out and kind of, you know, pulled some rabbits out of the hats for us at the last minute.
That's cool, Eric.
Yeah.
Now that extra help, that's really good.
Other than that, thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the supervisors or the manager or anybody?
I don't have any, and Tim's shaking his head too, so.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, then why don't we just adjourn?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll
Thank
second
you.
that.
Yeah. Thank you.